Chai Tea for Two has two competing tea producers moving tea from plantations all the way to ships in order to be the most successful. Players will build their production engine to harvest tea, place dice workers to take actions, and satisfy tea drinkers around the world. Steeped Games provided this in exchange for an honest review. This game is currently on Kickstarter. We've added a link below. Each round, the first player moves the tea assistant 1 to 3 spaces to the harvest marker of their choice. Both players gain the tea tokens shown and place them at the bottom of their plantation boards. Players then choose to move tea tokens up the plantation board a number of spaces by following the icon path depending on the type and/or gain additional unique tea tokens equal to the marker's number. Flip the harvest marker, move it to the farthest clockwise spot on the opposite side, then roll those tea workers. Take turns placing workers on the building boards until all have been placed. You can place workers on the building boards to take actions such as gain tea, gain plantation cards, become player 1 in the following round, reserve ships, move tea up the plantation board, and so on. The game ends when a merchant fills 3 to 5 ships depending on the length chosen at the start. Place 2 to 4 dice in sequence to reserve a ship. Your opponent can bump your dice by placing higher or longer sequence on the card, but you can respond by doing the same. Bumped workers are moved to another unclaimed ship. If none are available, they're returned to the owner's supply. Ship cards are claimed at the end of the round and placed at the top of your tea plantation board. Plantation cards have 4 general powers. Most move tea up your tea plantation board. Oxidation and fermentation cards change one type of tea into another. When crates activate, matching tea tokens in the adjacent space move into the crate for endgame points. Blooming tea cards don't provide powers, but give you points for the number you've collected. Some cards are one-time use. Flip cards face down after use. Full ships at the top of your tea board set sail to be scored at the end of the game, and the tea tokens are returned to the supply. The production board is similar to reserving ships, but instead of a sequence, the dice must match. As you can see, you can gain 5, 3, or 2 movement points at the end of the round. You can be bumped here too. If bumped, your dice workers slide down to the next row. At the end of the round, resolve the harbor and production boards, move tea tokens upward toward the docks if you gain movement points, and load ships if possible. If either merchant has loaded enough ships to trigger endgame, move to endgame scoring. Otherwise, restock for the next round. Place tea workers and use actions to move your tea and load ships. That's Chai Tea for Two. Our games of Chai Tea for Two have taken approximately 35 minutes, including setup and takedown. You could squeeze this onto a 3 by 2.5 feet coffee table. The play area isn't wide, but it is long. If you sit across from one another and keep the action board sideways, the total area will be smaller. There's no rating, but there is grade 2 addition. Decisions can be tricky, and reacting to your opponent is key. With that said, it isn't all that complicated. An experienced 7-year-old gamer could try, although it'll take some time before they might be competitive. In our 4th game of Chai Tea for Two, I kept taking the first player spot to guide things where I needed them to be, plus benefit from my engine. I was dominating. I was so confident that I didn't notice Mom filling her ships. I looked at her completed ships and got extremely worried. I still won, but it was closer than it should have been. Chai Tea for Two's Deluxe Edition has wooden leaves and tins. The leaves are pretty, but some are hard to grab, especially since the tins are too small. The art is beautiful, although it feels more generic and less full of life than the original Chai because much of the art, aside from the main boards, are just of things. Don't get me wrong, it looks beautiful on a table. The dice trays, which I've been told are add-ons, are amazing. I want to use them for all of our games. The plantation boards have dividing lines so that certain teas have specific paths to follow. Unfortunately, these blend into the art far too easily. I also wish the leaf icons had outlines or stood out in a better way. Yellow and green can be hard to make out. Coming from Chai, the graphic design here is a step backwards. The theme doesn't come through aside from the art. I don't really feel like I'm harvesting and shipping tea from the mechanics, just placing things and moving other things around. I love abstracts, and theme to me is a bonus, but I don't know, it also feels like a step backwards. The rulebook isn't great. I hope they're still working on cleaning it up before the game is finished. It makes the game feel more complicated than it actually is. Although it is head-to-head, player interaction is surprisingly low. You can block or bump, but not much past that. There isn't even positive interaction like buying a T token from opponents in the original Chai. I really like the harvest markers. The first player has a choice of what tea to get, then you have a number of points to spend on more tea or moving your tokens up the plantation board. The decision making here is my favorite part of the game. Early on, you may want more tea choices, but the puzzle is knowing when to make that big move to load ships. Thanks to those tea tokens, the dice manipulation and luck mitigation is pretty good. I do think that after a handful of games, certain decisions are a bit more obvious. For example, you'll want your best dice on the production board since 5 movement points is so important. Chai Tea for 2 is a dice placement game where you need to maximize your movement actions at the right time or you'll fall behind your opponent. I like the dice placement, but not as much as in a similarly accessible engine builder, Fantastic Factories. If I want to play Chai, I'll stick to the original game. The market and set collection systems there, along with a bit of push your luck and a race element, all come together so well. I won't say no to playing this, but it's not one I'd suggest, especially with the games we have on our shelves.